Alors bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien. J'espère que cette période d'isolation, bon, ça va. Vous n'êtes pas trop, vous vous êtes pas trop ennuyés, je veux dire. Hein. Et c'est aussi le bon moment de se retrouver en famille, de faire des choses en famille, de faire des promenades et tout ça. So hope all is going well. So for this evening, I'm going to be doing something that will be suitable for both Junior Cert and Leaving Cert. We're going to look at the verb faire, which is to do or to make. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it, all the different tenses. I'm going to show you a really handy verb grid, okay, that you can use and that you should start maybe incorporating into your copy, okay? I get my students to do this and they find it really beneficial because I show you how to start it and then you can do it for every verb, okay? Obviously, it's going to be really pertinent for the irregular verbs, and faire would be one of my royal family of verbs, as you know. My royal family would be être, avoir, faire, and aller. So I'd be really interested in you learning those four in every tense possible, okay? Now, I've broken down the verb and I've broken it into the various tenses. So what we're going to do is I'm going to refer to this again, but I'm just going to basically show you what your verb grid should look like, okay? So basically, at the start of it, you have, if you can see that, yeah. What we normally do is we start by the infinitive. So you get the infinitive of the verb. The infinitive is the verb before you do anything with it, right? So if you look up here, I've written JC, LC. So if you have JC and LC, it means it's important to learn for both Junior Cert and Leaving Cert. Now the ones down here are simply Leaving Cert, okay? So we're going to start with the Junior and Leaving. Obviously, you've got to recognize your verb. You've got to, there we go. You've got to recognize it in the infinitive, okay? Then you have to recognize the present tense, je fais. Now, just to say something interesting about the present tense, okay? If you want to say, I am doing something, okay? A common mistake that students tend to do or tend to make is they say, je suis fait, right? As in, I am doing. That they think that that's how you do it. And in fact, they're totally wrong, because the present tense, there are two present tenses in English, right? There's the present continuous and the present simple, right? The present simple would be, for example, you're stating something, for example, I am Irish, I am whatever. And then the present continuous would be, for example, at the moment I'm watching Facebook. It's I am doing something at the moment of speaking. The present simple is also used to express the idea of a habit. So for example, I play hockey every Tuesday. I go swimming every Monday. Do you get what I'm saying? So a habit. But there are two present tenses in English, but in French, the same verb can mean both, right? And the way you just differentiate the two is, for example, I would say, j'ai fait mes devoirs tous les soirs, can mean, well, it does mean I do my homework every evening. Then that, somebody would say, okay, so that's your habit or your present, right? But if I say, je fais mes devoirs en ce moment, then what you need to know is that this is your continuous. It's something that I'm doing en ce moment, at the moment. So generally in French, if we want to say that you are doing something, we generally substantiate it with a time frame, okay? So that's important. So there's your passé composé. The next are your present, right? Your next one obviously is your passé composé. Now, if you remember, I think it was last night we looked at passé composé, and remember we said it is the present tense of avoir followed by the past participle. Now, if you remember a little bit about the past participle, I said ER verbs go to EA acute, IR go to I, and RE go to U. Well, if they're irregular, they're going to have a spelling that you just have to learn. So you have to learn your irregular past participles, and that's the past participle of faire, j'ai fait. Okay. Now the good thing about it is when it's with avoir, your endings don't change. So it'd be j'ai fait, tu as fait, il a fait, elle a fait, on a fait, nous avons fait, vous avez fait, ils ont fait, elles ont fait, all the way through. So your fait never changes. But what does change is your present tense of avoir. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, on a, da, 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 de suite, ainsi de suite. Okay. So that's important. If you remember last night, we did the imperfect tense, right? So did you see the imperfect tense? Je faisais. Je faisais. I was doing or I used to do. So that one is important for both junior cert and leaving cert. You have to know this one, the imperfect, okay? Really important. I went into the use of it just to let you know that you would use it when you're talking about the weather in the past tense, okay? So just things like that. So to be aware of that and for feelings, okay? Now, the next one okay, if you remember the other night, we did a live stream on the blog, okay? And, or was that last night? A couple of nights ago, we did one and an email, right? And in the email or the blog, you were asked to write something in the future tense, right? Now, if you remember me saying, there are two types of future. There's the future proche, je vais faire quelque chose, I'm going to do something, or je ferai, I will do. And I've always said to my own students, look, if you have the chance, use your future simple, because it's more impressive for an examiner. Sorry, this one. It's more impressive for the examiner to use the future simple. Don't worry about writing these down, by the way, because when I was typing this up, there's a link to the blog, and the first blog post that you'll see is expressions with faire. So it's all there, so you don't have to be worrying about writing it down, okay? So the future would be an important one for both present or junior cert and leaving cert, right? Conditional, would you use it as much for junior cert? Not, why am I doing this now? Not really, but you would have seen it, okay? Je ferai, I would do, okay? And then the last one, which is important, is, if I get this, I'll get this right, don't worry, is the imperative. Now, the imperative is giving an order. So fait, faisons would be making a suggestion. So, for example, faisons le ménage. So let's do the housework, which is so many mothers around the country are saying that and making it sound fun. And sometimes it can be fun, but faisons is let's do something. You'd see that in, you might hear it in the listening, or you might see it in one of the readings, okay? Or faites de votre mieux. Do your best. Faites de votre mieux. That would be, those three are imperative. Don't worry, they're on the website, or on the blog, okay, which is on the website. However, now, at this point, junior certs, stay tuned, but for the leaving certs, you have 4 other tenses, if you like. One of them is actually a mood that you need to know, okay? So you've got that wonderful, I love it so much, the subjunctive. It's actually worrying how much I'm kind of emotionally attached to this mood, and it's all about emotion, okay? So when you view something with emotion, you're using subjunctive. So it's que je fasse. The past historic, now, just let me say a word or two about the past historic. It's je fis, by the way, okay? It's je fis, F-I-S. Think about the past historic. Do you need to learn it? Yes, you do. Do you need to use it? No, you don't. Do you need to recognize it? Yes, you do. So you would not use it ever in oral, right, in spoken, which is absolutely a moot point now, because guess what? You're not doing it oral. But you wouldn't use it in spoken French, because when all of you finish your leaving cert and go to France, and vous serez absolument éblouissante avec votre français, votre niveau de français. However, if you are speaking to a French person, you won't use the past historic. It's really, it's really for literature, okay? But where you will find it is the second reading comprehension, and that's really important that you realise that you will see it in the second reading comprehension. So please, second or first, depending, because the first isn't always as journalistic as we think, you know. But in the reading comprehension, you need to recognise it, and you definitely need to recognise the irregular ones, okay? But I'll do another one on the past historic altogether, because it's not difficult, but I think I should just signal a few things to you. But I'll do that further along the time, okay? For the moment, we won't do it. And that particular one, for example, would be junior certs would have absolutely no interest really. Well, some of you might. Okay, the next one is the pluperfect. Now, another one that we spoke about last night, the pluperfect, j'avais fait, I had done, right? Really important. That's when you've two actions, one goes before the other. Give you an example. When I arrived, or by the time I arrived, okay, so when I arrived at the bus stop, the bus had left. So I arrived, that's in the past tense, but the bus had left. So it's kind of going, stepping back, yet another tense, right? That's your pluperfect, okay? It's like the perfect is your past, if you like, and the pluperfect is more. So it's like a step back. So it's even further back, okay? So I had eaten my dinner before Louise came home. I had done something, step back before something else happened, okay? And this is not necessarily for any of you, but I'm just going to tell you the future perfect, j'aurais fait, I will have done. And actually there's a conditional future as well, j'aurais fait, so I would have done. So our conditional. So you have a lot of different tenses, okay? Here, for example, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? There's 11 there. There's another one, which is 12. So there's about 12 tenses in French. Before you all kind of go, oh Lord, why did I pick this subject? Remember, with the present, the past, and the future, you're going to be fine for the majority of your exam. For the junior cert, it's plenty. Okay, maybe recognize and be able to use a few verbs in the imperfect and the conditional, but realistically, if you can do something in the present, the future, and the past, like I showed you in the blog and the email, you will absolutely fly it, okay? As regards the leaving cert, you do need to know the present, the past, the future, the imperfect, the conditional. I would say it would be fantastic if you knew the subjunctive, right? Which again is not a tense, it's actually a mood, but we won't get into the, the nuances of the French language that much. Past historic, important to recognize. Pluperfect, really important, especially if you're going to do the récit or the narrative, okay? Now, when do you use the verb faire? When would it mostly be used? Now, I have another sheet here, right? And there are some of these that I have up on the blog, okay? So we're just going to go through a couple of them, okay? Just to show you, all right? So basically, it's really important. You need to know faire for the weather, okay? Will there be something on the weather in the junior cert? 100%, okay? 100%, 100%, vous aurez à faire avec le verbe faire. Vous aurez à faire avec le verbe faire. You will have to deal with the verb faire, right? So you will have to know that verb. One of the most important ones. So you will need it for weather. Il fait beau, il fait mauvais, il fait très chaud, il fait froid. All these expressions will be used in association with weather, all right? Now I'm going to give you a few more, all right? So I have a lovely one here. Faire de son mieux, to do one's best. Now, if I were a leaving cert student and I would like to write an opinion piece, I will use that faire de son mieux, and I'll actually use it in the subjunctive, and I'll go, il faut que je fasse de mon mieux. Il faut que je fasse de mon mieux. I must do my best. I know a lot of you would know it. You might say, il faut que le gouvernement fasse de son mieux, surtout pendant cette période difficile où tout le monde est effrayé par le virus de corona. So the government must do their best during this difficult time when faced with a problem like the coronavirus. And in fairness, I'm going to take my teacher hat off for a second and say that what the government are doing is absolutely on point as far as I'm concerned. We all have to stay safe with this dreadful illness or virus that's going around. You just have to really mind yourselves, mind each other. As Joe Duffy says, wash your hands. Then he takes back, wash your hands. And I think he's right. Lavez-vous les mains. C'est très, très important. Now, here's another expression. You could say, let's say, if you want to say, il fait nuit, it's dark, it is dark. Il fait jour, it's daylight. You could use it, let's say something on the junior cert comes up about housework, and you'd hear it like je fais le ménage à la maison, je fais mon lit, je fais le rangement, things like that. You'd need it for that. Faire du repassage would be to do the ironing. So you need to learn all those things, okay? Another one, faire la grasse matinée. It literally means to do a fat morning, to make or to do a fat morning, which is, of course, to have a lie-in, all right? How about if I were to say I play an individual sport? Remember, there are two verbs that go with sport. You've jouer à with team sport, or faire de. Faire de is to do. So, for example, je fais de l'escalade. I do climbing. Je fais de l'aviron. I do rowing, or I go rowing. They're just, the individual sports. Je fais du golf. I play golf. It's because you can play golf on your own, or, the driving range or whatever it is, or you can obviously go rowing on your own and things like that. So anything that can be an individual sport would take faire. So that's important. Let me see, because I have a few of those on the website or on our blog on the website, so you can go and look at those. I love this one. Faire une gaffe. Tout le monde fait des gaffes de temps en temps. Faire une gaffe is to make a mistake. All right? Like we would say faire une erreur, which would be to make a mistake, but faire une gaffe would be like to do something really stupid. Oh, right. Faire une bêtise would be another way of kind of saying that. Now, for leaving cert, you could say, elle ne fait qu'à sa tête. She only does as she wants. And the expression is faire à sa tête, which is to do according to one's head, is to be headstrong, to do whatever, to do something your own way. Another one that's important for junior cert would be faire la cuisine. Je fais la cuisine. Maman fait la cuisine. Mom does the cooking, or je fais la cuisine. I do the cooking, or papa fait la cuisine, because no gender stereotyping around here. Papa fait la cuisine. Dad does the cooking. And another one for leaving cert would be faire du mal à quelqu'un, because there you have faire du mal is to do, to hurt somebody. Faire du mal à quelqu'un. Now be careful when you're using à quelqu'un and you want to say that I hurt him or I hurt her. You're using your direct and indirect object pronouns, and it just gets more advanced than what you need for junior cert, okay? My advice for junior certs actually would be to learn really well according to your level. So what I mean by that is really master the junior cert course, and don't get too worried about what you need for the leaving cert course. Really concentrate on the words, the vocabulary, building your vocabulary at your stage, right? Junior cert is a great time to consolidate verbs and knowledge of verbs, right? So I would say, I'm going to show it to you again for those of you that have just joined, right? We were looking at that. It's on our blog on Frenchnotes, okay? There's a grid like this. I don't think I put in this part of it, but I can add to it. There's no problem there. I'm just saying that all the different tenses. I would, if I were you, I would start doing a grid of all of these, right? And keeping a grid, because it's really, really important that you that you get a handle on your verbs, okay? Leaving certs obviously should be getting a handle on their verbs. What I do with leaving certs, I tend not to get them learning the rote verbs, right? What I tend to get them to do instead is I say, okay, guys, there are your verbs, okay? And I want you to use as many verbs in this particular theme. So let's say I'd say the theme of la santé, or the theme of le chômage, which is unemployment. And I'd say, right, I want you to write a paragraph, but for each paragraph, I want you to use a different verb and use a different person. So for example, je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, elle, and try and change it around and make it interesting for the reader. Give them as many verbs as possible. And of course, by doing that, you're sending a message to your students that actually, I'm not just happy with you learning the je form of a verb. Now, obviously, you're going to say, great, Liz, so why did you just give us the je form? This is basically for demonstration purposes, okay? You just need to recognize the je straight away to get you going on it, you know. But I think as regards your verbs at Leaving Cert, 5th transition year, big year, the 5th year and 6th year. 6th year should be consolidating what you've done in 5th year, really. Okay, if we lived in a perfect world, which of course we don't. But I mean, you need to have a lot of verbs. Now, for example, did you know, right? I'm going to just show you something here. Well, I find it pretty interesting. Right, this is a typical reading comprehension for the Leaving Cert. Do you know, on average, how many verbs you will find in that? Now, you may find the verb repeating and all the rest of it. I'm not talking about the verbs that repeat. I'm talking about individual verbs, right? In any one of these, an average you will find are about 65, 70 verbs, right, in every reading comprehension. A lot of the verbs you won't have seen before. So a very good exercise for you to do, right? And I do this with my own students, and I'm not going to lie and say they love it, but they do it because I really need them to do it. Otherwise, I get upset. Rather than cross, I get upset, which actually works better. So if you can see that. Okay, so for example, take the first section. Okay, the pen is all over the place. Take the first section. Okay, you know the way they're divided into sections. And what I want you to do, okay, and this is what I say to them. I say, what I want you to do is I want you to pick out all of the verbs that you find in section 1, and there might be like, 15, 20 verbs, right? So they pick all those, and I say, now, fill out a grid like that for all of those verbs. And all I want them to do really is, okay, if they want, they can write them in every way, but if they don't, I just say do the je or the il or the on form for all of them all the way, you know, with every tense. And it's a fantastic way of, because you think about it, every time you've got to fill in, let's say, the imperfect, you have to stop and think, okay, how do I form the imperfect? Is it irregular? And then you realize, oh, imperfect, no, sure, there's only être that's the only irregular and imperfect. So happy days. So you then know that you're going to apply your rule to do imperfect. But think about it. If you sit down and do 15 of those, right, on a grid, and let's say a week later, I say, right, do section 3 of another reading, and you're going to come across the same verbs again. Now, that doesn't mean just because you've done them that, oh, happy days, I don't have to do it. No, every time, do it again, do it again, do it again. Reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. And I always say, it's going to become a habit, right? Now, it's okay for me. I've been doing French for, like, I'd say, since God was a child, right? For years and years and years. So it's okay. I can kind of do it. I don't have to think too much about it. I just have it that I know what the endings are, right? You need to get to a point where you know the passé composé, the future, the present, okay? I would say for junior cert, just do the present, the passé composé, the imperfect maybe, and the future, right? So even if you did those 4. For leaving certs, I would do, let me see. Yeah, I do all of them except the advanced. I wouldn't bother with the advanced one. But otherwise, I do the rest of them. Yeah, absolutely. And you're kind of thinking, but sure, that's an awful lot of work. Of course, it's an awful lot of work. But getting a H1 is an awful lot of work. Doing extremely well in the leaving cert is an awful lot of work. Doing extremely well in the junior cert is a lot of work. But guess what? The sense of satisfaction you will have when you're doing a reading, right? Think about it. This is where I just love this, right? But when you start doing a reading and you're kind of going, I know that verb and I know the tense and I know what I'm meant to be doing and it's all beginning to make sense. And guess what? These reading comprehensions are not that difficult. Why are they not that difficult? Because once you master the grammar, which is the most important, do you know that about 50% of the words that we use in English are the same in French? So actually, get your grammar and the rest is just going to flow beautifully, okay? The other thing that I would say is with regard to these, right? These are really important because reading. A lot of people say, I want to improve my listening for the leaving cert or I want to improve whatever. And I say, guess what, lads? Reading is what's going to do it for you. Read, read, read. The more you read, the more you're exposed to the French language, the better it's going to be. As regards to the listening, that will all come, all right? Listen to YouTube, listen to French music, listen to whatever medium you like. But in the meantime, read. You have time now, okay? Most of you would prefer to be back at school, I know, but you do have time to do this, okay? So I would say, please do. Now, I'm going to finish up there. You can get the verb faire on the blog, okay? I would really appreciate it if you'd leave a comment or if you would share this. I will be back again tomorrow evening, and I'm going to be back every evening at 8 p.m, okay? So please just take all this on board. Feel free to rewind the Facebook Live afterwards, the live stream. Look at it again, look at points that you think might be helpful. Ask me questions, send me questions. I would be delighted to help you. OK? Alors, je vous laisse, je vous dis bonne nuit et à demain soir. À demain.